Hey everybody, this is Jeff with Junior Hockey Advisor. Welcome back. I can't believe we kept we kept half our audience. They jumped right back on, or the new audience came back in. I'm going to get rolling again. If you were on with the first one, God bless you for coming back for the second one. Thank you so much. What was I thinking doing this? It was never a bucket list of mine to say, I want to try to broadcast for 6 straight hours on Sunday nights on a live stream. But you know what? The reason I did this is I thought, you know what? I've got to start reaching out to different markets. I've got to get more content that's segmented for ages. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break these down into stored information, because we had so many questions coming in for U10 through U13. Now I've got a piece that I can say, hey, watch this video. Same with this one, U14, U16, U18 is what we're talking about right now. I'm ready to rock and roll if you are. If you were in our first session and you heard the first 2 or 3 minutes, go get a cup of coffee, use the restroom, do some jumping jacks, relax, stretch, get a massage, whatever you need to do. Come back in a couple minutes so I can explain to the rest of the people what's going on and why we do this. So who am I? I'm Jeff Colson. I'm in Pittsford, New York. I've been doing this for over 35 years. I'm a master certified coach. Moved into the market originally to be an NCAA coach, which I did. Got involved with player development, president of a youth organization here for over a decade, owned numerous junior teams over the years, general manager, coach, master certified. On the girls' side, I've actually coached my daughter all the way through up while I was still a junior coach and running the youth organization and teaching private lessons on the ice. I still had time to coach her to 3 state championships, a national silver medal, and she went on to win an NCAA title as a freshman. I brag on her a little bit. She deserves it. She's a third-year law student just wrapping up at Penn State Law right now. So I say that because one of the points I wanted to make last session is, even competitive hockey players, the experience doesn't always lead you to pros. The experience doesn't always lead you to 4 years of NCAA Division I hockey. But I can tell you that my daughter still enjoys the game. She still goes to stick and puck at college, where she'll jump out and skate around with some of her friends. She's got her gear with her at college. She's not a competitive player anymore, but the game's instilled in her. She loves watching it with her brother. She loves going to watch her brother play. Her brother's still playing juniors. And so that's important to know, that this whole process isn't about the ultimate prize. The whole process is about enjoying this ride that we're all on, or I used to be on, but the ride is the phenomenal part about it is, if you're a hockey family, that excitement of the road trip, the excitement of the hotel. I mean, even the Motel 6s of the world. I still to this day get excited to go watch hockey. I love having a cup of coffee and sitting in the stands. There's nothing more exciting to me than getting that feel of a tournament semifinal game, or going to watch a high school state championship, or going to watch a showcase tournament game where it's a fun game to watch. So part of this is in making sure that I understand it. So a little bit about it. What do we do? Well, Junior Hockey Advisor, we put out a lot of content. We put out a lot of educational process. I am not a family advisor. So all of you that jump on right off the bat and think that I'm trying to sell you to represent your player, no. The farthest I can tell you that I go with that is I do webinars. That some of my webinars are free. Some of my webinars are paid content. My real paid content webinars are for people that are professionals in the industry, or trying to break into the industry, and those are for people that are aspiring to be coaches at the junior level, aspiring to get into college coaching, want to get into scouting. Those webinars. That's really where my bailiwick is as far as my paid content. Now, from time to time, we do consult calls. I do a few a week, where people call me up and I call with them, or spend some time with them on the phone, walking through the process, not representing their player, not trying to represent their player, or actually giving finite advice on you really need to do this, but walking through and weighing the options. Besides that, everything we do is free. In fact, everything that I talk about now, our paid webinars do But you have to sift through all of these live broadcasts to get the same content. So you want to spend all the time going through our live streams. You'll get the same content that the paid customers do, except they get it put into a nice prepackaged program. So, and once again, that's not the purpose why we're doing this. This is a process to get the information out there. So our mission is education, education, education. Trying to teach people about the process and what you can look forward to. So we're talking about that. Yeah, we're talking about midget hockey, starting getting out of Bantam Major and getting into midget hockey and the importance of it, and where it all fits into the world. And first of all, let me know where you're at. I'd sure like to know by comments. Throw up where you're at. I'd love to know who's on, who's not on. We've got a large crowd. And know that if you like what you come across here, we'd love to see you throw this up onto your, share it on your social media. Share this with some friends. Invite them to come over and watch the rebroadcast. We rebroadcast these. We'll get 100 or 200 people on the live streams, and our rebroadcast will go out to sometimes 8, 10, 12, 15,000 people will watch a rebroadcast. So, all right, thank you for the people that are coming on. Chris and Muskegon, great to see you. A little slow on seeing names come up, but we'll start processing. And as we're talking, if you have questions, throw them up. Throw them up on the comments, and I will try to get to as many questions, or I'll clarify a point I'm trying to make as we go through this. The first thing is, so we got North Carolina Junior or Golden Bears Junior Preps on. Mark's on Mark Boston's on. I think it's Mark Boston from Boston, or is that Mark Boston from somewhere I don't know? Anyway, good afternoon. For those of you who know, I want to throw that up so you can see what I'm talking about. Good afternoon, Mark Boston, or Mark from Boston. From New Hampshire. There we go. Thank you, Mark. Got that all clarified. Okay, a couple things. All right, I'm a big proponent at this age, when you start getting into 14 and above, if you're trying to move up and ascend the ladder, one of the first things to do is to actually work backwards from where your ultimate goal is. Now, not everybody's going to Harvard. We know that. Not everybody's going to play for the national development team or the world junior team. We know that too. But you got to start somewhere. And if you want to know, I'm just going to pick. I went to the University of Michigan. I had my cup of coffee with the Michigan program as a player, and I know to get to the University of Michigan, the majority of the players get there on a certain path. And how do I know what that path is? And then I'm talking about recent history, not eons ago. In my day, I'm talking about the current roster. Where do they come from? It's pretty easy. You just reverse engineer it. Now, how do you reverse engineer it? And what do I mean by reverse engineering? Okay, if I want to attend a D1 school, if I want to attend a Big Ten D1 school, the first thing I want to do is, if that's my goals, every kid should have a goal. Every family should have a goal. Okay, a dream needs a goal. A goal needs a plan. Okay, so if I start planning now, I can achieve goals, and if I achieve my goals, I can get to my dreams. But it all starts on the planning phase. And how do I plan? I plan by actually looking backwards at things and trying to figure out where they're at. So the easiest way to do this is through elite prospects. And what do I mean by that? So most of you that are been around me, some of this is going to be repeating information and some of it's not. But for those of you that are new, and hopefully we've picked up some new ones, I'm going to jump on and I'm going to show you elite prospects. I'm going to show you just a little tactic that I use when I'm talking to people, and I'm going to try to pull this up right now. Okay, here's elite prospects. Ta-da! Now, elite prospects allows me to, I'm going to pull up Big Ten. Okay, let's see if I can get the Big Ten rosters up here. Better yet, I'll just put Michigan in. You guys don't mind if I use the greatest university ever in the history of universities, do you? Okay, there's the University of Michigan right there. All right, now here's their roster. Now this is elite prospects. Anybody can get on this now. I believe I'm on the pro version here, which has a few more bells and whistles. But I'm going to show you a couple things here. First of all, I can, right off the bat, I can see the age of their players, and I can also see where they're from as far as the city. So right off the bat, I can see that, yeah, they've got some Michigan kids on there, but they've also got kids from all over the United States, which is good because if I'm not in Michigan, I can say, oh, there's a chance. But that really isn't telling me much. Okay, what I can do is I can look at this roster and I can say, all right, how many kids are from Michigan? But let's go to the next level. And I can also look at size. I can say how big are they, how heavy are they, and how old are they. Now, what you don't see on this is, unlike a Division III roster or even a mid-level Division I roster, you'll see a lot more 22s, 23s, and 24s. You don't see as many on here, and why is that? When you talk about Big Ten schools, you talk about North Dakota, you talk about Ohio State, Michigan, you talk about Boston College, BU, Providence, your normal big boys. Now, they're not always in the top 10, but those are your premium schools for the most part. Everybody knows which ones are, I shouldn't say that. You should know which ones are the big boys and which ones are continuously producing players of the higher level. One of the things is, if you want to know what schools are the hot schools, look at the national development roster and find out where all those players are going every year. And it breaks down to they're going to 3-4 schools. You can look that up fairly easily. If you don't use the tool already, besides Elite Prospects, get used to using collegehockeyinc.com. College Hockey Inc. will, if we get time a little bit later, I'll show you some things on that. But that'll show you where all players are going. It shows you, first of all, it gives you all the rules about how college hockey works, as far as how recruiting works, how to play within the rules, how how the recruiting process goes, when they can talk to you. And it's important at the 14 and older ages to start understanding how the game's played. Now, getting back to this roster, why is it important to talk about this roster and look at it? Well, what I want you to do is, I'm going to pull up a name here, and I'm going to pull up Blankenberg, Nick Blankenberg. Okay, he's one of the captains on the team. Nick is from Washington, Michigan. He's a 22-year-old, 5'9". But what's interesting about it is you can see his progression path. Played for Little Caesars, which, if you're not in the Detroit market or don't know, that's a HPHL program. It's a high-performance league team. There's 6 teams in the high-performance league. Now, he had a little bit of a different path from most. He played for his high school team, but he also played for the MDHL program, which is like a little all-star team. Then he went to Victory Honda. He played for one of the really, really good U18 coaches out there that's focused on U18 hockey, which is Brian Burke, not the Brian Burke from the NHL, Brian Burke from Victory Honda. Then he went to the AJ, and then from the AJ he went to the NCAA, which is Michigan. He's their anomaly player, but I pulled him up on purpose because I wanted to show you that you can get to places like Michigan from organizations like the AJHL. He went to 1 year of U18, then went right on to play. Now, he had already been considered a top player going in there, and you can see from his involvement. He played in the Pee Wee Quebec tournament. He played for elite programs before in spring and summer. So this is not a late bloomer by any means. Now, let's juxtapose him to another Michigan kid, which is Jay Karanen, I think is how you say his name, Karanen. Also a Michigan kid, but now I can see that he jumped into the Null early. He played a couple years in the Null, went to the BCHL, then went to Michigan. So I can start seeing now that even players that have some high school, they're doing it really, really early, like freshman, sophomore year, then they're jumping into juniors from there. Now, once again, high school is not the norm, except for Minnesota, a small pocket in Michigan, and a small pocket in Wisconsin, and a very small pocket in Boston too. There are some pockets of really good competitive hockey that can move you on to the next level. What you don't always see, though, when you look at these kids that play for their high school programs, is that they also are playing very competitive showcase teams in the spring and summer, and they're usually playing U16 and U18 parallel to their high school season. And that's the case with Jay, if I'm not mistaken on that. Let's take one of the kids from out of the market. Let's take the Houston Texan kid. This is Bordelot. Now, you'll notice right away that he came through the National Development Program. He played for the national team, but he took a path through playing up in Canada. I believe he played in the Quebec market, and he played for a school up there, like a prep school. Now, why is this important to go through all these players? Now, Michigan's different than some because Michigan, like a lot of the bigger schools, are taking the best wherever the best are. And you get to the next level down, they become very niche programs. Meaning, if I'm an Atlantic level coach and I'm an Atlantic level college, I'm looking to really build my team off of certain markets. I have to really focus in and latch my teeth into the NCDC, or I have to latch my teeth into the North American Hockey League. I don't have the ability to cherry pick the best of the best like the top programs do. So part of this is to make sure that you understand that the level of college team you're looking at as you reverse engineer down makes a difference. If I jump into Atlantic and look at the Atlantic teams, you're going to see a much different picture. Michigan is a broad sweep. They can go anywhere they want and pull players from anywhere. Let me get out of this full screen here and get back to just me. It's important. It's important to understand that you got to work backwards to understand where you want to go. Now, I'm not going to spend much time on this because I want to make sure we get a lot of time for questions. But when you work backwards, if I pull up RIT, if I pull up Canisius, you're going to see them focused on one or two leagues for the majority of their roster. It may be the NCDC, the NAL, it might be the BCHL. But then you get a better picture of what that school is looking for as a player and where those players are coming from. Now, we all know 90% of the players are coming from the BCHL, they're coming from the USHL, they're coming from the North American Hockey League. The North American Hockey League is the NAL, and they're coming from the AJHL. Right there, there's your top four. And it's clear the USHL is a percentage of their rosters are always the deepest as far as the amount of D1 commits. Then it's usually a battle as far as the percent of the rosters between the BCHL and the North American Hockey League. On numbers, the North American Hockey League clearly puts more players into Division I hockey than the other two because they're the biggest. They're running in mid-20s in their teams, post-pandemic, 26, I believe, next year when they're back up to speed, versus, half of that for the USHL. So as far as, per team percentage, the USHL wins. Now, with that said, can you play in other leagues and play Division I hockey? Of course you can. The CCHL up in the Ontario area, the OJHL, they produce Division I players. The NCDC produces Division I players. Now, you get to the Tier 3 level, it's very difficult, and rarely do you have a player that goes straight from Tier 3. And it hasn't happened in a year or two that can go straight from Tier 3 to play Division I. It will happen once in a while, but it's rare. And it used to happen more when Tier 3 was a little bit more condensed and not as diluted by a number of teams. I'm not saying diluted by talent, by a number of teams. Throw everything out the window for the pandemic year that we're talking about, because there is nothing that is going to show any statistical patterns this year that are normal. And the reason is because you've got a condensation of Americans that did not go to the BCHL, that stayed in the NAL and into the NCDC2. Not so much into the USHL because the new USHL didn't have room for a lot of the BCHL players coming back. And once you turn your back to the USHL the first time around, a lot of those coaches and general managers are reluctant to pull a BCHL kid into the roster. There were some, but not as many as the North American Hockey League picked up. So you've got a real condensed North American Hockey League. Remember, Americans didn't go up to the BCHL for the most part. You saw the USHL drop a couple teams because of weather-related incidents and the pandemic. You saw the North American Hockey League have a few of their programs that were suspended operations for the year because of the pandemic. And because of those two factors, and also Buffalo and the OJHL, They dropped their program for the year, which is an American team with mostly almost all Americans playing in the OJHL, played a Canadian League American team. But when you factor all those players being condensed into basically one league, 1.5 with some of the players going to the NCDC, you've got a phenomenal amount of talent that's extraordinary this year. It's your best year of junior hockey as far as talent that we'll probably see in a very long time across the board at the higher levels. Now, with that said, let's get back to part of this. So working backwards, you got to find out where they're playing their junior hockey at. Then from the junior team, you work backwards to find out where they played their U16 hockey at. You use Blankenberg, for example, went through Victory Honda. You do your homework on Victory Honda, you'll find out right away that Victory Honda, as a percentage of players coming out of Victory Honda, may be right now with pandemic, I can't assure you this, but one of my old videos I went through and I did the top 5 Tier 1 elite programs as far as production over the last 5 years. They're a top 5 program as far as players year in, year out. They're one of the programs in Colorado's right up there. The Avalanche, before they dropped out of the Tier 1 elite, New Jersey Avalanche were right up there too. You've got 3 or 4 programs, 5 programs that are always consistent. And then, of course, you've got the rest of the Detroit market. But remember, the Detroit market's a little bit different because they're a little bit of an anomaly. Let me get 2 points across, and we'll go to questions. The other 2 points I want to make is, and I do have a webinar on this, building your brand. What does it mean to build your brand? Okay, building your brand. I'm going to give you two points to think about here. Build your team around your player. Build your brand. Now, that sounds very corporate. It sounds very MBA. Yes, I teach an MBA finance class. I teach an MBA marketing class from time to time. I am an MBA. I think that way. I think about marketing from the standpoint of if it works in business, why wouldn't it work for a hockey player? And it does work. And if you think about it the right way, let's talk about building your team first. Who is your team? Well, first of all, your team is your player, okay? But it's your parents. They're part of the support team. If you hire an advisor, hire an advisor. There's nothing wrong with hiring an advisor. He's part of your team. Is he the reliant part that does everything for you? Absolutely not, he or she. That's not the role of an advisor. An advisor is supposed to advise and give you ideas and give you paths that you can choose. The ultimate choice comes down to you as a family, you as a player, on what you choose to do. Some people rely too heavily on their advisors, and some justifiably so. If I've got if I'm going to be a first-round draft pick, and I've got an advisor that's that understands how to deal with an NHL first-round draft pick, I'm going to rely heavily on that guy to guide me because I've never been a first-round draft pick before. Okay, unless your name's Hughes, which they're going to have 3 in the family, that's a little bit of a different story. Most families don't have 3 first-round draft picks. Okay, for the rest of us, the rest of the world, you've got to build a team. So who is that team? What do I mean by team? The team is anybody that has anything to do with hockey that's involved with your family, you, or your player. Old college teammates, old junior teammates, old high school teammates, they can be part of your network and your team. Your power skating instructor or your skills instructor is absolutely part of your team. Your current coach, your former coaches, or your future coaches are all part of your team. I can tell you that my daughter, some of the people that were on our team that we built around her, when I say we built a team, we didn't have any team meetings. We didn't have a Monday marketing call where we all got on Zoom and talked about my daughter's future. No. But what I did was I utilized them to give me sage advice to also promote her when they could. And how did they promote her? By having the same message that we wanted the message to be. When my daughter played, she had a bomb of a shot. She was a stay-home defenseman for the most part, but you get her up on the point, she could just freaking light it up as good as any boy at that age with a shot. So what was the message? Good, steady, stay-at-home D, got a rocket, got a cannon, got a heavy shot from the point. 2 really instant points that built a picture around her. Now, you could go into more details about academics. You could go into more details about this or that. The point is getting a bullet point, 1 or 2 statements that your whole team actually used to describe the player. So if your kid is, hey, he's a highly skilled player that is not afraid to stick his nose in the corner, if everybody's on the same page with that message, by the time that message gets around to everybody that hears it, when a person comes out to watch your son play, the intrinsic bias that you want to be in place is in place. It's marketing 101. It's the messaging. It's putting the thought process in their head before they see your son play. Versus having 4 or 5 or 6 different messages coming across the board. And how do you get everybody to say the same message? You go to him and you say, hey, Mr. Power Skating Coach, you've seen my son play for the last 3 or 4 years. You've worked with him. What do you think? And he might ramble on with 4 or 5 things he thinks, and you go, hey, look, we've kind of got a consensus here. Would you agree on these couple of points? That he's highly skilled and he's not afraid to put his nose in the corner? Yeah, absolutely. That's the way I see him too. Awesome, great. If you talk to anybody, can we stay on that message? Can we make sure that those are the first things we talk about? Sure, okay, no problem. So now what we've done is we've built and manufactured a situation where everybody's talking the same language. Doesn't mean they can't go into more detail? No. Doesn't mean that everybody that knows your kid has to say the same thing? No. But if the key people that are going to be references for you moving up to U18, to moving to juniors, to moving to prep, to moving to your high school program, are all saying the same thing and around the same point, the job gets 10 times easier, because that's the way it is when you get to the college level. I can tell you right now, if I walk into a building and I sit down with 3 or 4 people that are scouts, and they're at let's just say I'm sitting with 2 or 3 guys that are NHL scouts and a couple D1 scouts, and we're up at the OHL Cup, and they're taking notes on players, and somebody goes, hey, what do you think about number 16? It's, hey, he's heavy on the stick, which means he leans into his passes, leans into his shots, little bit heavy on the skates too. Maybe that's it. 2 points. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I see the same thing. I don't. They're not giving you a laundry list. They're going to 1 or 2 points. So if you're taking the time to build that message ahead of time, by the time that message starts getting put on paper, or when that college coach or that junior coach comes to watch and he's heard it from 4 or 5 people about what that message is, he's already thinking, oh, this kid's a skilled player. And he might even repeat it right off the bat for you. I've seen it 1,000 times where you go, what do you think about that player? And it's exactly what the messaging that was set in place a year ago for that player was. Oh, he's highly skilled. He's not afraid to put his nose in the corner. It works. It works. So building your team and building your brand go hand in hand. There are no corporate meetings, okay? You don't have a secret handshake for these teams. You're not putting a team together that's going to, get compensated, or they're going to put this on their resume. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you having a circle of people that are on the same message. That message is something that your current coach can help you with. If you're using an advisor, they can help you with. Your past coaches can help. And I got the point I was going to make earlier about my daughter. Some of the best references for her when she got up to the point where she was looking at junior teams and she was looking for colleges, and yes, there are junior hockey programs for girls, was they came from Division I coaches that she got to know over the years. Not the ones that were recruiting her, but ones that knew her, got a chance to talk to her, became her best advocates. So they may not have had a spot on their team for her, but they became great for her to build around her team. So, for example, there was the current coach of Maine became one of her best advocates when he was talking to other people. You're going to love her. Got a heavy shot from the point, stay-at-home defense. It doesn't fit into our program, but man, you're going to love her. She'll be great for what you guys are doing. Definitely can play. The message that was set in place 3 years ago at a spring tournament or wherever it was put together. And I'm not bringing this up for any other point that lets you know that it's like when you go for a job interview. Think about it this way: if I go in for a job interview and I interview for a job, and the guy really likes me, but I'm not really fit for the job, I'm going to ask him who he knows, or is there anybody he knows in the industry that he can help. If I'm going out for a sales call and I'm a salesman and I'm going to sell, let's say I'm a financial salesperson. I'm selling stocks and bonds. I'm a financial advisor. And I go out and I'm trying to sell you. Okay? You may say no. What should be the first thing I ask for? Who do you know? Is there anybody that my services can help because that's how I build my network and that's how I build my brand. And could you put a good word in for him? I'd like to give that guy a call. Can you tell him? So then you go yes or no. And most of the time people go, yeah, I'll get, you're a good guy. I've known you for a while. You're a good guy. I don't want to buy stocks and bonds from you. But yeah, I'll give Fred a call for you. Or I'll let Fred know the next time I see him. You go, hey, Fred, there's a good guy. He wants to talk to you about stocks and bonds or whatever. Or here's, today's texts or whatever way you're getting a hold of people. But the bottom line is, asking people to help you is perfectly fine. You're playing for a junior program, you try out for a junior team, and you get cut, and they call you in for that cut meeting. First thing I would be doing is asking, hey, coach, I get it. You say I'm real close, but I'm not ready for you. Is there a team in this league that you would suggest I go talk to right now? And if not in this league, who would you think? You'd be amazed at how many coaches will go, hey, look, I'll give Sam a call over at Team X and see if he can help you out here. So that building that brand, building that team, you don't know who's going to be part of your team because the team never really meets or exists in that form that you're thinking of. But it's anybody that can help keep you on message and keep you on point. Does that make sense? Okay, let's talk a little bit about a couple givens, and then we're getting into questions real quick. It's a given at this level. You're above 14 years old. It's a given that you're going to work hard and that you're working at continuous improvement and you've got grades. Those are the givens. Those are the things you got to do to elevate your game to the next level. You've got to have a work ethic, and nobody else can be working at it. It's not the coach's job. You want to talk about a pet peeve of mine? Pet peeve now is to be a good coach, you've got to be a police officer, you've got to be a guidance counselor, you've got to be a sports psychologist, you've got to be a nutritionist, you've got to be a mediator, you've got to be a family counselor, a grief counselor, a motivator. No, you're a coach. Let coaches coach. Your job as a player, your job as a parent is to come there with motivation, ready to work hard, period. I know that's not politically correct. And for those of you out there that are coaches, if you don't believe that. If you think you need to be all those other things, keep trying, okay? Bill Belichick isn't any of those things. Bill Belichick studies film and coaches, okay? That's it. He has no personality. He coaches. And I can name 30 Division I, Division III hockey coaches. Yeah, being a good recruiter is good for a college coach. Yeah, having some personality is good. But you don't have to be 10 different things. You're not an expert on everything. You're a coach. Coaches should coach. Families should get their players prepared to be good students, have a good work ethic, and be ready to continuously improve. The things that should be new concepts at this age that you got to start diving into and starting to learn more. Not every player. The two things that really you need to start worrying about is working out, off-ice workouts. 14, 15, 16 is when it really starts getting introduced heavily, and diet. Now, most players are not going to embrace both these things right off the bat, period. It's not going to be part of a U14 team to have a perfect diet the way a junior team or a college team does or strives towards having, or having workouts that are continuous and perfect at that age. Yes, you can work out at that age, and yeah, you can get stronger at that age, but those are the things you have to start embracing as you move through 14 and 16s. So the last thing that I want to make sure that you understand is 14, 15, and 16, this is where we talked about it last hour, but this is really where sacrifice comes into play. And if you're not used to that word sacrifice, and those of you who listen to me a lot know that where I'm going with this, because I say it all the time, you're going to sacrifice time. You're going to sacrifice money. You're going to sacrifice social events, and you're going to sacrifice family, okay? Those are the things you're going to sacrifice. Time, okay? Does it mean, what does time mean? Time's relative to each family. It's different, okay? But time could mean you're moving out of market as a player. Time could mean the family's moving away from their family. The family could split. So you're going to sacrifice family time. You're going to sacrifice time in general. You're going to sacrifice money. If you think hockey's a money grab, maybe this isn't the right sport, because hockey's expensive. You're going to pay for showcases. You're going to pay for main camps. You're going to pay for things. Okay, you can say, oh, that's only a money grab. If that's the way you look at it, then that's not the right way to be looking at it. If you're going to go to a main camp for a junior team, they're going to charge you. The USHL charges, the BCHL charges. Now, there are some teams, rare, that will do a main camp for no cost to the players. But these teams are trying to survive too. And part of the survival is actually charging for things. But you're going to sacrifice as a family. You're going to sacrifice from having to move out of market, and if you're trying to be and strive towards college hockey via juniors, because everything funnels through juniors. Everything funnels through juniors. Okay, get that in your head right away. Only 2 players last year, pre-pandemic that is, moved straight from prep into college hockey I think there was 3. 2 of them were NHL draft picks. Okay, they were older prep players that were able to jump right in. You're not moving out of Minnesota high school. Phenomenal high school hockey. You're not moving out, you're moving into juniors. Prep players are moving into juniors. U18, U16 players move into juniors. You're not jumping through. So get it out of your mind of being an 18-year-old freshman. Who are the 18-year-old freshmen? You saw a couple on Michigan. They're your first-round draft pick kids. They're your kids that are coming out of the National Development Program and can jump right in at high school age, right after high school graduation, and jump right into one of the big schools. So the rest of us, you're in a situation where you're going to be 20 to 22 years old starting your college career. So that sacrifice and knowing that you have to move away from home is part of the sacrifice. Money, family, time are all sacrifices. And for the kids, social things. You're going to miss proms if you're going to follow this path. You're going to miss Thanksgiving dinner with grandma if you follow this path. You're going to miss other family members' key events if you follow this path. If you're a junior player and your sister's got a big event, an engagement party, has having a baby, whatever the case may be, there's a good chance you're going to miss those events because your family lives in Boston and you're playing hockey in Waterloo, or you're playing hockey in the BCHL, or wherever it may be. Now, things are a lot easier now with social media, but it's still it's a difficult thing. But that's the sacrifice that comes along with this. I know I covered a lot, and I'm doing this, condensing a lot of information that many people that are loyal to the program and to our live streams hear a lot. But this is a new audience for the most part. We've got a nice large crowd on there. It's time for me to open it up and see what kind of question come in on this and see what you guys are saying out here. So give me a second to pull up, say hi to a few people. And Bill from Wisconsin is on. Brandon's on from Virginia. Flint, Michigan's on. It's probably my cousin Jeannie. She's always on there from Flint, Michigan. Jay from Boston's on. Cam's on from Kansas City. Ted's on again. Ted's on from Alberta. Got a message here, and I should have known this. I do know this, but I'll pump this up here. Little Caesars no longer HPHL. They left and were replaced by the Oakland Junior Grizzlies. I did know that. I apologize for misquoting that. Thank you for pointing that out. Facebook user, Mr. User. It's the one thing bad, depending on which platform you're coming on, because this gets streamed out to numerous platforms. Some of the platforms don't give you the name of the person that's or where you're at or who you are. So thank you for that. But the concept of Little Caesars, the concept of the Grizzlies, your CompuWares, your Bell Tires, your Honey Bakes in that market, they're all those programs that are running pretty much the same way. And they're lemmings, meaning one year Little Caesars hot, the next year the Grizzlies are hot. People jump ship in Detroit more than any other market. You don't believe me on that? Pull up a Little Caesars roster, pull up an Oakland Junior Grizzlies roster, pull up a Bell Tire roster, and just look at the majority of the kids. Most of them played for 2, 3, 4 organizations by the time they're done by the time they get done with U18. That's the Tier 1 elite players. May not be the same with their Tier 2 programs. You can't play AAA in high school in Michigan like you can in other states. Yeah, you can't play split season, but they do have the MDHL model that you see some of the kids. And really, the way the workaround on the high school for Michigan is not playing split season like in our state, in the New York. Although I don't agree with it, it's a split season for the teams. So the midget teams start play the fall. High school comes in November. Full high school season, then they pick up again and they play some spring hockey afterwards. Now, you'll also see in Minnesota, you'll see those fall teams. You go into my hockey rankings and there'll be 3 or 4 teams in the top 20 for midgets, and you look at them and going, what team is this? Well, it's because they played 15 games at the beginning of the year. They played in September, October, or whenever that period is before high school. And so you'll see several teams like that. Now, Minnesota's probably got 8 or 10 teams like that now. Michigan's got a couple of these teams that are the pre-high school. They go hard for 15, 20 games, and then they're done. But you're absolutely right. Thanks for the comment. Let's see what else is going on. We've got Johnny coming in from Southern Maine. What about Mass? Can you play high school in AAA? We're going to talk about that in the next session. I think our next session is U18 versus prep. We're going to get into that. I'll get into how the markets work a little bit. Agreed 100%. I don't know what you're agreeing with on this, whoever put this comment up, but thanks. I'm glad you agree. Sometimes it goes the other way. Hello from South Philly. Great. Can you explain, let me get into this next one here. Let me pull this one up. Can you explain the role or place of minor pro hockey in the organizational chart? Oh, well, that's a whole, that's a tough one to talk about right now because minor pro hockey has evolved into an extraordinary beast in its own. You can be a Division III college hockey player and have a phenomenal career of playing pro hockey, especially with the European markets now, especially with the East Coast Hockey League turning into what it's turned into. You don't have to be in the AHL or the NHL to have a career in hockey, and in many cases make a decent living at it. But let's save that one for another one. That one's a tough one, Dana, to jump on, especially when we're trying to pump out the narrow topic bands that we built for the day. So let's jump on here. Okay, what's a typical path for D3? Division III hockey doesn't have much of a different path. You're going to see the difference is where the players come from. The players, your big feeders to Division III hockey, the North American Hockey League still has a large amount of players that will go to Division III. They'll go to your Norwiches, they'll go to Wisconsin Stevens Point, they'll go to Adrian, they'll go to Utica, they'll go to Oswego Geneseo, and then they'll go to some of the preps in the East Coast that are the top dogs. They'll go to those top 10 schools. That's your North American League player for the most part. You'll get a couple USHL guys, but the majority of your players are coming from the EHL, the Eastern Hockey League. They're coming from the NCDC, and they're coming from USHL Premier in the North American Hockey League. NA3, I should say, North American 3 Hockey League, the NA3HL. And what I say by that is it's a stratification just like D1 hockey is. Your top players in D1 hockey go to 5, 6, 7 schools, and then the rest are stratified down. You won't see any. When I say this, please don't find that one time that Atlantic hockey had a draft pick and tell me, oh, you're wrong. I get it. Every once in a while, the Atlantic has a draft pick. The college league has a draft pick. But for the most part, if you're NHL bound or you're a top-end player, a drafted player, you're not playing in the Atlantic. And it's not because the Atlantic is not good hockey. The Atlantic is the baby on the block right now for Division I hockey. What do I mean by that? The majority of those schools were D3 programs, 8, 10 years ago, and they've evolved into D1 programs. They only got full scholarships this year or last year where they actually got their full complement of 18 rostered, just like every other Division I school. That changes everything. The dynamics of the last 5 years for Atlantic hockey is that they were working with a short deck. They didn't have all the aces in the deck. When you don't have a full complement of scholarships, you can't compete with everybody else as well as they did. The Atlantic's done a phenomenal job of competing with a short deck as far as the ability to give scholarships. When you don't have a full deck, it's harder to get players. Now, I say that because D3 hockey works the same way. You've got your elites, you've got your academic elites and your elite teams, and some of them are academically and hockey elites. The Middleburys, the Norwiches, the Geneseos, those are, you're getting the best of both worlds there. But your leagues are filled differently. North American Hockey League players are all coming out of Tier 1 Elite, HPHL. They're coming out of the Beast. They're coming out of those leagues. Even if they end up playing Division III hockey, they're being fed from there. Whereas you look at your EHL teams, the EHL teams are not being fed by as many Tier 1 elites, as many Beast teams, and as many HPHL players. They're being fed more by the AYHL players. They're being fed by the North American Prospect Hockey League. They're coming from different avenues to get there. And so they fill a different level of, and it's not complete because their EHL will get some great players that end up being top players in Division III hockey, but they're filling a different need in Division III hockey. And then the Premier and A3HL, they're still filling the rosters, Division III rosters, but it's usually lower echelon players. So knowing where the players come from, and if you're a borderline D1 and D3 guy, now it gets really interesting. Because if you're a borderline guy, do you go to a D1 team where you're one of 28 guys and you might get on the roster, or do you go to a Division III program that's got just as good of academics, maybe is actually even cheaper for you? Because remember, there's only 18 scholarships for 28 players at Division I, maybe 30 players. Or do you go to a D3 school where they give you money up front for academic reasons because they cannot give you an athletic scholarship, but the package is actually a better financial deal than the D1 partial or no ride. So there's a lot to talk about, but the question was a good question. The typical path is going to come. Yeah, if I were going to say the typical path for D3 hockey, the typical path is probably through the EHL, Eastern Hockey League, and the Premier League and the NCDC. That's your typical path. So looking into those leagues and getting to know those leagues well is going to really do you well, or do you good. Okay, Cheryl says, are most players doing online school when they play juniors due to practice and travel? Great question. Depends on the league. So Cheryl, if you play in the North American Hockey League, very few players in the North American Hockey League are still in high school. It's your oldest junior league, so they don't have to worry about it. They're taking online classes for college for the most part. Now, there are some young kids in there, but for the most part, they're all high school graduates that are playing in that league. Now, the USHL, by mandate, has some high school level kids. Yes, they're taking online classes to complete it. If you're leaving your market, it used to be, now the National Development Program uses brick and mortar schools for their players. The two teams in the National Development model that are in Plymouth actually use the Plymouth school system, and the players actually attend a regular brick and mortar high school. The majority, the vast majority of junior players out there right now that are still in high school, that if they leave their market are doing online schools. Now, and that's a whole topic. Maybe we should do a whole show on that, live stream on that. But I used to own one of these academies when we had our junior programs. We had 16, 18, and 2 junior teams. We had our own in-the-rink academy. Some of the figure skaters took advantage of it. Some of our players at 16, 18, and juniors took advantage of it. And we had an in-room certified teacher in the classroom, so they got the best of both. And you see some packages out there, some programs out there like Total Package Hockey, I believe, does that right now, where they have a classroom and they've got a hybrid. The classroom might be at the rink. They might have conference rooms at the rink. But they've got a teacher in there to help you, to counsel you, to guide you, and to kind of keep the discipline in play of studying and focusing. But you're still doing an online program and certified. And all those online programs now, if your junior program is using an online program, they're accredited and they're gonna get you to the next level. They're all colleges. There's no colleges that don't accept online programs now across the board. So, okay, let's see what else is going on here. Corey from the Swamps of Jersey's on. Okay, Corey, see you. Jason's on from Rapid City. Looks like we got something here. My son is a 2004, started with Charlotte Rush. Should he continue with them, try to move the null, or go back to U18 team? So we're going to cover that next hour. We're going to talk about U18 and prep and that dilemma, but we'll also get into U18 versus junior in the best situation. I am a very big proponent on, unless you're going to be in a North American Hockey League or in the USHL or BCHL, that you play out your U18 hockey and use that development path. There's such a strong U18. Now people argue, U18 is not what it used to be. I was there when it used to be. Okay, I've been doing this a long time. U18 is what U18 is. U18 still functions. U16 and U18 hockey is important. I would strongly recommend that you stay with U18 if you can. if you can have a competitive team and you can play competitive hockey and your program is getting you looks to the next level that you want to go to. If you step off too soon and don't make a North American Hockey League team and you get into Tier 3 juniors, sometimes Tier 3 juniors is more difficult to move out of to get into a higher level junior program than it is to go from U18 to a high level junior program. So I know I can't get into that in much detail, but I hope that helped a little bit. That's a great question coming in from Michael Cunningham. So thank you. All right, here's a good one. Is going to prep school versus a U14 player beneficial for development, even if the player has to start on the JV or third teams? I would ask that you stick around for next hour when we talk prep schools and we talk about that dilemma a little bit more. I'll give you the quick one just in case you can't stick around. Prep is expensive. You know, you can spend $30, $40, $50, $60,000 a year for prep hockey. If you feel that there's a value for prep hockey for the academics and also for the hockey, it's great. Now, if your hockey allows you to go to prep school on a much more economic basis because they're going to give you money or discounts to go, maybe that changes the picture. But if I'm a U14 and I have no assurances, I want to make sure that I'm there for the right reasons, academically first. If I'm a top player and I can see that the path is there, but what you really don't want to do is you don't want to go to a year of prep and go, boy, this isn't really for us. We want to pull out of prep. And then, you know, don't get me wrong, academics are good at most of the prep schools, and your money's probably well spent if you stick it out for the whole period of time. But there's nothing worse than having a family go to prep school for a year at 14 or 15 years old and then realize it's not really what, you know, the family makes a ton of financial and time, family separation, all those sacrifices I was talking about. You go through the whole process and you did it, and it lasted a year. It was temporary. It didn't work out. I would make sure that 14 years old that you're there for the right reasons. What's a great candidate for a prep school? A great candidate for a prep school is a family that's used to prep, and that prep is in the family lexicon of discussion with or without hockey. That's a great prep candidate. Who's another great prep candidate? A recruited player that knows he's going into a situation where he's going to play. That's a great candidate. What's another? I can keep going on what's a good candidate, but make sure you fit into the category that says, you know, we want to be at that prep school regardless of hockey, because there's a huge commitment if you're going to pay that kind of money. Okay, so I know that's not the full answer. We're going to get into that in the next session, but I hope that helps you and gives you a little bit of guidance on that. That's a great question. I wish I could get into it more. So Wisconsin has before and after. Thanks for throwing that on there. Okay, agreeing on the Facebook, from a Facebook user, agree on the sacrifice and work ethic and nutrition. Thanks. Mark Boston, Mark from New Hampshire. Mark Boston from New Hampshire. What is a good path for U14? My son will be starting his first year of it. We have a bunch of interest in him. Just trying to figure it out. Look, U14, you want to set yourself up on that reverse engineering. You know, think a year or two out from the path. Whatever the interest is, you know, clearly you want to play for the best program and the best league you can. If you want to see how the process works, watch my video called Junior Hockey Polls Are Worthless, and Here's Why. Go watch that video. And the reason I say watch that video is because it shows you that every team at the junior level is stacked that's in first place. Okay, and this year's an anomaly. Don't use this year. The pandemic has thrown everything into a curveball. But for 4 or 5 years before that, every year that we put together these numbers, you can see that they're stacked. They're stacked because the players all came from the same places. Where they came from U18 teams that were stacked. Where did that U18 team get the stacked players from? From the 16 team that was stacked. Okay, from the leagues that are stacked. So you want to look and progress at the highest level you can. That doesn't mean everybody's going to play Tier 1 Elite. If you're on the East Coast, it could be the Beast. It could be the AYHL. It could be numerous leagues that are great, midget level hockey or even bantam level, your situation. But you want to line up with the one that's going to be able to push you to the next level. The beautiful thing about this is, and this is not just for Mark, this is for everybody, because of elite prospects and the fact that you can pull up every single roster and see where the players come from, you scroll down, it says, where do these players end up going? Even if you pull up a U14 roster, You can see where those players progress to. It's all there now. You've got a statistical bank of information that is incredible, that wasn't available for the schmucks like me that've been doing this my whole life, that we actually had to remember things. We actually had to track down coaches and ask them where their players went. And we had to remember players, and we had to keep big files on players. Elite Prospects does that for everybody now. You can pull up so much information and know about that 14 team you want to play for. Where do the players go? Okay? If you're trying to get into a good U16 team, maybe you want to play for a USPHL team that's a really good USPHL U16 team. Well, look and see where their players are coming from. Talk to the coach and say, where are you grabbing your players from, coach? My kid's a couple years away from you, but where do you grab your players from? What teams do you like? What do you look for as far as the teams? Don't ask him about what he's looking for on your player. But if you get a chance to grab these guys, they're pretty good. If you see them in the rinks, they'll tell you about that stuff. But that's a great question. Okay. Hey, Jeff, how do we find out which Tier 3 junior programs in the U.S. to stay away from? Wow. So there's, yeah, okay. And I'm not always on the know on which programs. First of all, I look for a few things. Turnover at junior Tier 3 is good at the coaching level, and it's bad at the coaching level. So you can't look at coaching turnover and say, for example, the head coach of Aurora, which is a really good college program right now at the Division III level, was coaching in the USPHL down in Florida, and he left the program after a couple of years. He left to move on to to coach college hockey, and that's a positive thing. Now, there's probably 3 coaches in that same division that left because they weren't doing such a good job. Okay, so you can't use coaches and turnover of coaches as an indicator. Really, you have to do your homework and talk to people. And remember, coaches aren't usually going to throw other coaches and other programs under the bus directly, or advisors aren't either, because everybody's in this for the long run. They don't want to burn bridges. They don't want to talk bad about people, but it's what they're not saying. Okay, if you hear people and you go, "Oh, my son is looking to go play for this junior team in this state," and they go, okay, and they don't give you a positive feedback like, "Oh, wow, that's great. Oh, wow, yeah, you'll like Bernie over there. He does a great job. Oh, Hank and his guys over there, they're wonderful." Sometimes it's what's not said where you should be picking up the clues when you're talking to people about different programs. How do you find out? You talk to your U18 coaches, you talk to your U16 coaches, you look at these different message boards, you find out what's going on there. I'm not going to run programs under the bus. Now, if somebody's doing something heinous, we publish it, or there are people out there that publish things that are, when people do something illegal or do something wrong, that information gets out. But if it's because it's just a poorly operated program, we're not going to get into that here. It's not really our role. But there are ways, and that's I'm going to write that one down as a future topic. How to pick those out. Now, I can tell you that part of it is no different than anything else. The more you know by building that team around you, and having a solidified team of people, your power skating coach, your former coaches, and asking questions of all of them. A power skating coach who runs a summer clinic or your showcase coach, they know everybody, and they'll probably steer you in the right way. If you're at 14, 15, and 16, you need to be in the showcase game now. Okay, you're done with the tournaments. You're done with a local week-long camp that takes you up to Camp Cranberry, where you swim in the pool, and then you go play hockey, and then you go back to the pool, and then you drink bug juice around the campfire. Those days are over if you're going to get serious about this. At 14, 15, and 16, it's going to the Boston market, the Detroit market. It's going to Colorado. It's going to Memphis, or Nashville, sorry. And you're doing showcase skates. You're getting involved with a showcase program, and the reason you're doing that is because you're building that relationship, and that's another person that you're getting to be able to triangulate about your direction about Tier 3 hockey. You ask questions. You ask questions of other parents that are a little bit older. You talk to the parent. When you find out who your kid's playing with, and you got 2 or 3 older brothers that have gone through the program that have kids on your son's team, you talk to those parents, and you get their sense of it. And also remember, not everybody's experience is the same. You could go through a junior program and have a wonderful experience because everything went right, and a really good family that could go through that same program where everything went wrong. And it could be started because of ice time. It could have been something because it was poorly managed. There could be a lot of reasons. So you gotta do your homework. That's why I can't really give you a solid answer on that. I can give you a little bit of an answer. Now I'm running late. I got to jump onto our next sessions. Thoughts on full season, AAA or high school for U15 freshmen? You answered it yourself in there. It depends on the quality of the high school. So you answered that. Should U15 AAA players that don't have an advisor go online and complete player profiles for the USHL and all teams? Absolutely. I'm going to end on this one. That's a great question. I know there was other questions. If your question didn't get answered, try to jump on the next session on the U18 and prep, or come back at 8 o'clock tonight when we do our Ask Anything, or DM me the question. I'll try to get on to them. But let's end on that question. Brian's question is, what information should you get out there? The answer is yes, yes, and yes. You definitely want to get your name on that list for I would say this. There's only 60 some odd schools, 62 schools at the Division I level. If you're playing AAA hockey, you should be looking at every one of their websites and getting your name on that list right away. You think, wow, I don't know if my kid's going to go play D1. I'll explain that in a second. USHL teams that have that play, do you want to play for us? NAL teams, do you want to play for us? BCHL teams, if you want to play for us, fill this out. Every junior program that's got that, fill it out. Get on those lists. And here's why. If I'm a college coach and I'm going to watch a showcase, and I did it, I walk into that rink and I've got a couple different lists. My list is my players that I've watched and recruited, got them in my hand here. And on that list, I might have my staff too. A couple guys on my staff gave me, hey, coach, watch this guy for me, watch this guy for me. So I've got my 8 or 10 guys that I'm going to watch over the weekend of the showcase that are my guys. But then these calls came into the office, these emails came into the office, the forms are filled out on our online system. They gave me 25 other kids, of which 7 are going to be at this showcase. I'm going to watch those 7 kids. Now, I'm going to watch those 7 kids. I might not give them the same attention of the kids I've got on this list over here, but I'm still going to watch those 7 kids. And I'm going to give them a little bit of time, and I'm going to see if there's something there. They took the time to fill it out. I'm going to watch them. Well, what's the difference between me on that roster, if I'm one of those 7 kids, and the other 300 kids that are playing in the showcase? They're not on that list because they didn't take the time to fill that out. So I'm a Division I coach. I'm at least taking a second to watch your kid. I don't care how good your game is. You might score 5 goals in a showcase game. If that coach doesn't have you on a list here or on a list here, there's a good chance he doesn't see any of your goals. Why? Because his eyes are on the kid that's on his list. His eyes are on the bench watching the kid on the list, or his eyes have figured out where his parents are and he's seen what the parents are like in the stands. His eyes are watching the coach's interaction with the player he's recruiting or the kid on the list over here. He may never see the great things you do because you didn't take the time to get on a list. Get on the list. Do your work to make sure you do everything you can to get on somebody's list. It might not do much, but if you're on a list, you're getting looked at. You're getting at least something versus the 300 kids that didn't do anything. They can have phenomenal games. They can be great players, but the coaches, they're watching certain things. Now, don't get me wrong. Coaches will pick their head up once in a while and watch the game in general. But no, most of the time you're coming because you got something to do. You've got a job to do. You're there to watch certain players. Okay? Does that make sense? Hopefully that helped. Folks, I'm running long. I got to get on to the next session. I'm going to sign off for a second here, and then I'm going to sign back on just because I'm human. I got to get a drink. I got to use the restroom. And then come on for session 3, and our session 3 is U15 or U18 and prep, the dilemma, which way we go. We'll get in a little bit of high school. We'll talk 16 and prep 2. We'll talk about it all coming right back. Thank you so much for jumping on. I hope you all enjoyed it. Make sure you like our Facebook page, follow us, get involved in that discussion group if you're not already involved. Go to YouTube Junior Hockey Advisor and watch our YouTube videos. A lot of free content out there. Hope this was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments if it's helpful or if there's something else you need.